A trainer with the Clippers who was connected to Kawhi Leonard since his days in college is suing them for many, many, many things. So, what are our quick thoughts on it?
Kawhi has obviously been one of the bigger what-ifs over the last few NBA seasons. And for a situation like this to come out about potentially the most injured NBA player we've seen over the last few years, I mean, it kind of explains why the man just continuously over and over and over again gets injured now. And look, I wish the best to Kawhi. I wish the best to the trainer if these statements are true, if these charges are true and stuff like that that's getting brought to the courts. I wish the best to the both of them. But I fear this could very well be the end of Kawhi Leonard's career. Is that where we're headed in that direction? And it's scary, but it's the truth of the matter. And it seems like it's something that could very well be in the books, because how do you come back from this now? How do you play for that organization again now that this stuff has hit the light, has hit social media, and blown up effectively? So, yeah, man, this was quite the bomb.
Man, I lost my train of thought. I was ready to go, and then you added "this was the bomb" and threw me off.
Sorry.
No, I'll let you gather your thoughts.
Yeah, that was the
I mean, yeah, it really was so, because not just the injury stuff, which I'll touch on after, but it goes back to when he was with the Spurs, and it's a whole tampering issue too, that it's just like, how did the NBA let that go? You know what I mean? Like, it was because, like, there were some speculations about that already, obviously, that'll come with any big name going anywhere. You know what I mean? Like, Shohei goes to the Dodgers. I'm sure people were speculating some type of, they had some type of prior relationship, you know what I mean, before it actually happened. So it was just so much. I mean, it said in the article, shout out to Chris Haynes for dropping the article, but it said in the article that when he was on the Raptors for that 1 year, there were Clippers representatives or whatnot at 75 to 80% of the games. Like, how do you let that slide for a guy who we know is a pending free agent? You know what I mean? Like, when guys are going to go into free agency, I feel like you got to keep a extra eye on them so something like that doesn't happen. You know what I mean?
I think that it's just, this was a multi-year plan. Like, that's the craziest part about this. Like, there's one thing to tamper a year before a guy goes into free agency. This was a multi-year plan. I don't think I've ever seen anything.
Multi-team, man.
Yeah.
It went through multiple teams. Like, that's...
And we always...
level.
Even a college team. Like, this was not necessarily included the San Diego State Aztecs, but they brought a guy in that was related to, not related family-wise, but had a relationship with Kawhi back in his college days.
Yeah.
And he actually was his personal trainer. Like, Kawhi hired him to be his personal trainer. So he was Kawhi's trainer throughout his career with the Spurs.
Leading up to the NBA draft, yes. And then he got the job with the Clippers a few years before Kawhi.
No, the same year.
They were talking to him and making him... asking
illegally,
for intel on Kawhi's like injury history and stuff, and meeting with him. And then once Kawhi signed is when they signed him, and based on what he's suing them for, basically kicked him to the curb and said, you're only here because of Kawhi, but you don't have a role here. And they, based on what it said, like, discriminated him out. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just...
like, verbally harassed him too, apparently. Like, it's just...
it's a lot, man. It's a lot.
It's heavy stuff. It really is, like, very heavy shit. Like, this is...
because there was always so much with the Kawhi injury set. I feel like as basketball fans in this community, we all felt like we didn't know everything because dating back to the Spurs stuff, it was just so murky. Because I remember back in those days, one of the thoughts that I feel like all of us agreed on whenever we talked about it was, how do you turn against that organization? You know what I mean? Like, they were the class of the NBA at that time.
Sorry,
Luka just threw a pass behind his head into the corner.
Stupid pass.
I can't believe that just happened.
Oh, I need to see the replay before I can.
Yeah. Here you go.
Oh,
just typical
normal
Luka things.
Typical Luka stuff, but
that's not That's not fair. But yeah, we were all thinking, how do you go against and have a bad relationship with this organization? Because at the time, the Spurs were the class of the NBA. In terms of being a classy, well-ran organization, they were in a tier of their own at that time. So we were all so shocked by it. But I mean, clearly the Kawhi was right about his injury. Like I said, Chowtown Hoop, shout out to him. What he said, this is not an injury. This is a condition that Kawhi has. So obviously it was more serious, and he was right to be getting a second opinion on it at that time. It stinks that it made the relationship between the Spurs wonky, and I think there's more that goes into it on that end too. And then the way that there were just numerous times in that article where the Clippers rushed him back when, you know, we as fans were all complaining, obviously, during that time, like, why does this guy have to load manage? Like, just play and do your job. But in the end, Kawhi was always right, because these injuries were more serious
this is a chronic condition
than we were led to believe. And, like, you know, I don't know if there's any podcast clips, but I know back in those days, me personally, I was tough on Kawhi. I know you always rode or died for Kawhi.
I was so for Kawhi.
But I know
this just makes me even more
I mean,
of a fan
I know
now.
me
like,
and Trunks used to always go at you about Kawhi and, you know, saying he doesn't love the game and whatnot because he wasn't playing and was holding out in a way. But I mean, I'm sorry, Kawhi. Like, I didn't know this was this bad. Like, if all this stuff gets confirmed and it's true, then I mean,
how many guys do you hear about having degenerative knee issues?
You know,
like, it's like, how do you even play through that?
I mean, even like,
you don't.
For him to play at the level that he has been playing when he does play, played what, 68 games last season and was one of the best players in the NBA once again while dealing with these issues, coming off another season that ended in multiple surgeries prematurely. Like, this is insane. This is nuts. I don't think we've ever seen a guy as frequently injured as he is. I don't think we've seen a guy deal with injuries the way he has. I think it's nuts. And the only guy that I recall in sports that had a degenerative knee issue that I remember hearing about was Todd Gurley. And Todd Gurley, after that information came out, I mean, the dude was 26 when he basically hit the wall and started being ass. And when he started being ass, I mean, shit, he was one of the best running backs in the NFL, if not the best running back in the NFL.
He was the best running back in the NFL.
Exactly, for a multi-year stretch, and then 26, 27 hits, and this dude's knee is cooked. And it's very similar to the Kawhi situation in terms of the injury from what I was reading about. So, yeah, it's some stuff, man.
Yeah, and just a look on it from the Clippers as an organization, as their standpoint.
Oh, boy.
How the hell can you do this to not only the person that you're suing and, well, not suing, but one, abusing.
Yes.
They were abusing this dude, not obviously physically, but mentally and emotionally. But to Kawhi Leonard, who was supposed to be your guy, that's your
savior of the franchise.
Yes.
And especially in a year like this, where for as long as my basketball life has been going, the Clippers have always been the little brother of the Lakers playing in the Staples Center. This was a huge year for them, opening up a brand new arena, which looks amazing.
Looks sick.
And
oh my God,
it's all overshadowed
you
now.
Ruined it.
It's all overshadowed.
It's done. The Clippers are back to being the laughing stock of the NBA.
It's not even a laughing stock matter. It's matter of what the hell is
it's
going on.
No,
It's
but
not
I
even it's not laughing
I know,
stock
but
anymore.
what I mean is just they're the bottom of the barrel in terms of
poverty,
NBA organization.
not actually.
I texted in the chat. It's what I've been saying about the Jets the past few weeks, but there's a lot of factors that go into evaluating sports, analyzing sports, which is what we do. But at the end of the day, organizational incompetence trumps all.
Yep.
And after the Steve Ballmer era, to bounce back the way you did with the
Donald Sterling era.
Sorry, after the Donald
shit.
Sterling era, to bounce back in this new Steve Ballmer era. And
he seemed to be awesome from all prior to this.
I guess he really took the whole. We have to win at all costs.
Yeah,
he really took that shit to heart.
He was aggressive. He built a great team. He built a competitor. You bring in the most coveted free agent of like that year, but also one of the more coveted free agents of all time.
Yes.
I mean, it was it was LeBron levels of a story. Obviously, not like obviously LeBron's LeBron, but just the way it was covered because this guy just came off a championship run, and he wanted to go to your team, and to treat him like that,
because
it's ridiculous.
tampering to get him on the roster is one thing.
Yes.
But to then neglect him as a human being and force him to play through these injuries, because that timetable with his ACL, in the article stated it was 730 days.
That's nuts.
Granted, it is a very long time for an ACL recovery, but
That's
it was
2 full years.
But granted, it was probably more than just the ACL that he needed to
his
recover.
knees
from.
Clearly, it was the
destroyed.
degenerative knee.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
that's the
like,
problem.
His knee
So
needed more time to
destroyed.
heal.
So how do you heal an ACL, which is typically 10 months, 8 to 10 months at minimum, with the degenerative knee issue in a year? Like, how is that even possible? So, yeah, it's nuts. And one other thing, and this will be my closing thoughts at least, this leaves me with the biggest what if. What if Kawhi never left? What if Kawhi stayed in Toronto?
His knee probably still would have been the same.
But my thing is they took care of him there.
Of course
They
did.
put
Because
that man as, they looked at him as the savior
right
of the
way.
franchise.
Yes, the way
and
the Clippers
treated
should've.
him that way.
The way the Clippers should have.
And, you know, it really begs the question of what ends up happening if Kawhi stays in Toronto. And I wonder, where is Kawhi, like, physically at this point if he were to stay in Toronto? And, man, wow, just heavy shit. And I wish the best to Kawhi.
Yes,
And
especially.
and to Randy Shelton, that's the
And
The
to Randy
trainer,
Shelton.
the guy's
yes.
name. But
So,
I mean, like you said in the beginning, you corrected yourself, but when you said he had a relationship with this guy, but like that's family, dude.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, this is a guy that it goes back to, like you said, Kawhi's college days. Like, this is a guy who's been in his life for a long time, and again, he was the reason that he came to the Clippers. You know what I mean? Like, he was a part of the same way Paul George was a part of the deal. The only way Kawhi would come is if Paul George came. It seemed like it was the same way for the trainer, Randy Shelton. So it's just a bad situation for everyone involved. And I'll close it off with this. Another thing I said in the group chat and to you, Ortiz, when we were texting, but we need the Kawhi documentary expeditiously, dude.
yes.
I mean, this is
The title
something
and
could alter the sports world. Like, maybe more people speak up on experiences like this. I don't know. Again, we don't. There. How do I work? Like, there's so much shit that goes on behind closed doors. Like, at
we'll
the end of the
never know.
day, most of all we see of these guys in sports is the 2.5 hours when we watch them play. Obviously, we see more and more now in the social media era, but for the most part, there's just so much shit within these organizations that goes on behind closed doors. So maybe this starts a wave of people who have had similar experiences, whether it's players or trainers and medical staff, having to be quiet when they know something about a player's injury. There's so many guys whose careers were cut short by injuries who maybe if they stayed out longer or were treated differently, their careers could have been different. So it's just such an interesting situation, especially coming from a guy who was already just one of the more interesting case studies in NBA history. It adds so much to that. So I think if no one else is going to do it, I'll pitch the idea to someone 30 for 30 or whoever, but like there needs to be a documentary about this
Or
when it's
Netflix Untold.
Yeah, when it's all said and done with Kawhi, I mean, there has to be some type of, film about this.
Yes.
This is really, interesting stuff that you don't always see in the sports world, stories like this. This is a one of a kind story. So I'll end with the question of this. Do we think this is the end for Kawhi? Do we think he ever suits up again?
I mean, we saw what he can do on still, obviously, this injury is a lingering thing. And like you said, it's not even an injury, it's a condition. It's more than an injury. He's been dealing with this, obviously, for a long time. And he's been still able to perform up to a level that...
An elite standard.
Yeah. He's been one of the top 10, 15 players in last season, at least, for sure. And I think he can continue to play at that level. It's just a matter of when he can play at that level. I can't see him playing for too long after this, but I still think he still has somewhat of a career after this.
So I'm not even more so concerned about Kawhi getting back on the court, which obviously we don't know when that happens. I hope he ends up healthy, fully healthy, if he ever does think about coming back on the court. I'm more in the thought process of, does he ever even want to suit up for the Clippers ever again?
No.
Because of what just came out. Like,
I can't see
like obviously if this hadn't come out, we'd probably feel a little differently. Maybe he continues to push it off because he doesn't want to suit up for this team, knowing what he's gone through already. I truly do wonder now if a team is even out there willing to trade for Kawhi Leonard. If he is willing to continue his basketball career from this point forward. That's the most important part of this whole thing. And how good can he be when he comes back, if he comes back? So, look, I think at this point, it's if Kawhi's ever going to play again, it definitely is not for the Clippers. That is where I'm at.
Yeah, like you guys just both made completely different points, but that's what the situation is. There's so much that goes into it. And I think both of your points play a factor in it. And it's my question is, how much of this did Kawhi know?
Yes.
You know, what were they keeping from him that they were also, you know, keeping the trainer from you know? So
He had to have known at least some of this was about to come out. Like,
I don't know. This is a
This is a bomb.
No, this is
a bomb.
This is like some of the biggest NBA news we've had in like years.
Yeah.
Like legitimately in years.
And like you said, Ortiz, you know, he could still play at that level the last time we've seen of him. And again, we've seen him come back from injury time and time again and be able to get right back to that level without really missing a beat. But then again, it's like, we haven't seen you play a full season without ending the season injured in almost 5 years now. And do you want to keep doing that to yourself and having surgeries and all these things? But then again, like you mentioned, the human side of it, when like you dealt with a situation. This is a terrible situation for the people involved, for Kawhi and for the trainer. It's like, this is really bad, and it's just like I can't see him suiting up for the Clippers again. I mean,
done.
If this stuff is all true, it's just like, how do you want to work for that organization? Yep. You know, imagine like us working at our job, and our job, you know, puts us in harm's way, and like the accusations say, and what the lawsuit is for, like, abuse someone who is the reason why I'm here. You know what I mean? Why I'm working for this company or whatnot. So there's just so much that goes into it. I'm honestly leaning on the side of, we don't see Kawhi suit up again. I'm not going to lie. But obviously, you know, if Kawhi wants to continue playing, and the game of basketball wants Kawhi to be playing, obviously.
Absolutely.
I'm not saying he should or shouldn't retire, but, man, this is a big obstacle to bounce back from, not just the injury, but mentally it's a lot.
Especially if he's getting hit by all this news, and like you said, if he knew nothing,
right? Like,
what the hell
again?
was going
What
on?
did he know? What did he know? So
like, did he know he was supposed to be out for 2 years with his ACL tear? Like, what did Kawhi know?
Yeah,
at the end of the day?
This is like we keep saying. It's just so interesting. Like, again, we saw, like, it sucks for everyone involved. The Clippers, like we mentioned, are a joke of an organization, but as a fan of the game, as a student of the game, a guy who, you know, looks into all of these things in NBA history, not just the stuff on the court, but all of these theories and things that happen within organizations and players' lives, like, something that I feel like all three of us really all look into. We watch Mike Korzemba videos growing up and things of that nature. It's just so
high roller.
Right. It's just so interesting when you really dive into the NBA like this. And again, the behind the scenes stuff. So, I mean, remember when The Last Dance came out, it wasn't a situation like this, obviously, but what I'm saying is it was a way to see a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that we don't always see. So, again, I'm really I don't want to use the word excited, but because of the magnitude of the situation, but I'm just so intrigued by it, and waiting to see what comes out next, and who the next person to speak on it is. I wonder.
Oh my God! I wonder what release a statement.
Right. I wonder what Steve Ballmer's going to say. I wonder if we hear from Kawhi. Like, you would think you have to speak up after this, but again, we saw in San Antonio he was very, very quiet amidst a situation where his name was in the headlights day after day. So, yeah, man, I
really wonder, were they giving this man fucking horse tranquilizers before games and shit? Like, what were they doing? So,
yeah, this was a lot.